Hello and welcome to you all. Today's masterclass is about how to prepare for a job interview, and today we are going to give you all the keys to prepare and manage your job interview in the best ways. And we are here today with Inna Uvarova from the company Reply, where she is head of recruitment for Benelux and France. And she is going to give you all the keys and all secrets to succeed in your job interviews. Hello, Inna.
Hello, Osa.
Thank you for joining us today. How are you doing?
I'm doing fine. Thank you very much. How about you?
I'm just fine. I'm very glad to have you with us today. So just to resume this, the goal of this masterclass today is to answer all the students' questions about the job interview, to give advice, to give tips, to give practical examples on job interviews. And this is how we will structure the masterclass today. We will address the subject in chronological order. So we will start with the preparation of a job interview, and then we will move on to how you get ready for the job interview. Finally, we will talk about how to act in the best way during an interview and how to follow up afterwards, after the interview. And just before we start with the main topic of the day, could I ask you, Inna, to tell us a bit about yourself, about your professional and your academic background?
Yes, absolutely. So I was born and raised in Ukraine. I studied political science at Kyiv Mohyla Academy. Later, I studied journalism at London School of Journalism. And 2 years ago, I graduated from Executive MBA program at Booth School of Business at the University of Chicago. All of my career happens in HR, in recruitment in particular. I started back in Ukraine in a company called Sandora. It's #1 juices and beverages producer in Ukraine. It is now owned by PepsiCo. And then I moved to the consulting sector where I am now. And as you mentioned, I'm holding now the position of head of recruitment for France and Benelux region at Reply.
Okay. Thank you. Very interesting. So I think with all this experience, you will share with us really the keys on how to manage a job interview in the best possible way. And before we jump into the subject directly, I just wanted to give some instructions for all the students who are attending today. I saw we had a question in the chat about the recording. Just so you know, you will all receive the recording afterwards. It will also be published on our YouTube channel, the Job Teaser YouTube channel. And one more thing, if I may ask you, if you have any questions, we will answer them, of course, as well as we can. We'll try to answer all of them if we can. However, may I ask you to put your questions not in the chat tab, but in the tab questions. Why? Because there's a very useful function in there. You can actually like a question that you find especially important. And then if we have a lot of questions, we can give a priority to the questions that are muchly liked, so to speak. So if I may ask you to do that, it will help us to answer your questions as well as possible. So thank you in advance. So if we jump into the topic of the day, of course, the first thing when it comes to a job interview, the most important thing of all is to be ready and to be prepared for it. And Inna, I would like to ask you, what is your advice? How do you think you prepare best for a job interview? Do you have some different steps to take as to the best preparation you can do for a job interview?
Okay, so first and foremost, of course, the most important thing to do, one of the most important things to do when you prepare for the job interview is to know, to get the maximum information about company. One of the worst things is to come for an interview without knowing what the company is, its company culture, or knowing very little, because that feels immediately, and of course that creates a certain attitude from the interviewers. These days, in our era of internet, it's not difficult. You just need to visit the company website, check about the company's activity. If you check some news about the company, what they're up to, maybe they invented something new, maybe, I don't know, they launched a new product on the market, or they participated somewhere. Getting to know about all those news, getting those pieces of information would be very helpful, because this will show not only your interest in the company, but also will help you to understand the company better, its company culture, etc. Of course, reading attentively the job description is a must, especially not only when you apply, but when you actually go to the interview. In my practice, in my experience, I've met a lot of candidates who come to the job interview, especially these days where the majority of job interviews are done online, without remembering the job description. So they might check information about the company, but not reread the job description. And this is a big mistake, because the interviewers will be looking for the match of between the job description, the company, and the candidate skills. Especially, it is very important for graduate candidates, for people who are looking for making their first step in their career, to launch their career, because basically what we're looking for is the match of the soft skills with the company culture and values. And knowing the job description is the crucial point here. And last but not the least is preparing a pitch, of course, because the pitch is what is going to sell you, your profile. And I would say take a significant time, really work in your pitch, because this is something that you will be using on a regular basis, not only in your job search, but in general in life. Pitch is something that will make you stand out of the crowd.
Great. Thank you. So basically, you need to be sure to have maximum information on the job description and on the company to be well prepared, so to speak. I see we have some questions in the chat. Some of them will be answered during this masterclass, so no worries. Just be a bit patient, and we'll come to that. However, I see one question from Ezekiel, who's asking, how do you prepare for an interview when you don't know which company you are actually applying to? Because some companies do not allow recruiters to inform on that. And that's a question I will let you answer, Ina.
Yes, that's actually a very good question, because it does indeed happen. That happens when a company decides to solicit the services of headhunters or headhunter firms, which usually hire their final client. I would say, again, focus on the job description, because that's what will be available to you, first and foremost, and then develop a good relationship and good communication with your headhunter, because usually headhunters are interested in selling their candidate to their client, and they will give you the maximum possible information about the company. Of course, they will not reveal the name. Maybe they will at certain stage, but even if they don't, usually they will provide with the maximum information about the field of activity of the company, the industry. I don't know, some news, maybe they will give you some names of people who are going to interview you. Usually closer to the interview, you will get this information.
Okay, great. Thank you. And I'm keeping an eye on the chat here. I see a lot of you have questions about questions. And like I said, we will come to that part later on. I see one question from Elvina. Maybe we could take that one right now, because it's about preparing the interview as well. And she wants to know, how should you best prepare the final CEO interview when you have come that far? What does a CEO usually want to hear? Do you have any advice on that?
Yes, so Well, unless it is a small startup, I don't think that for a graduate for entry role, you will be speaking with the CEO. But if it does happen to you, or at later stages of your career where you will certainly speak with CEOs at certain point, just remember that by the point where we start speaking with the CEO, or you will start speaking with the CEO, you will have passed through a number of interviews, right? So you will get to know the company a little bit, their style of communication, their values. Well, make sure that you know values before, because they will be testing you usually on that. You will know people, you will know what they're talking about, what they're thinking about, their plans, etc. The CEOs are people who think first and foremost about business. So you should be professional, you should develop business thinking, and always keep in mind about your possible added value to the company. This is what the CEO will be looking for. Speak about your skills, your value that you are bringing, putting on the table on the company, and speak the maximum possible in the business terms. But again, at the entry role, at graduate role, I don't think that it will be very commonly met in your interviewing practice.
Okay. Thank you very much for that, Ina. I see that we also have questions concerning our next point, which is the pitch that you have already mentioned, that before you go to the interview, you should indeed prepare a pitch. And in this context, you often hear elevator pitch. And could you explain to us what it is exactly and what its purpose is?
Okay, so let's try to understand what an elevator pitch is. It's a short presentation that should last no longer than a usual and average elevator ride, which usually lasts between 20 and 30 seconds, right? So during this very short period of time, you need to deliver a message about yourself, which will stay in the mind of your interlocutor. It should be interesting, it should be memorable and succinct. This is the most important. It also needs to explain what makes you unique, what you bring to the company.
Okay, great. So it's actually, you could say, a way of answering the question, well, tell us about yourself. You could
Absolutely
put it like that.
That's right.
Okay. Are there other way you could answer that question? How to, well, tell us about yourself. Do you have any other advice concerning that one especially?
Yes, so usually this is one of the first questions after the small talk is done, because these days, and I guess it was before, the majority of interviews start with some small talk where the interviewer tries to relax the candidate, relieve the stress, etc. But after it's done, usually it's one of the first questions. The interviewer will ask, okay, tell us about yourself. The important thing is you should not be repeating your CV, because be sure the interviewer, your interlocutor, will have read your CV before. So you do not need just to repeat it, and you don't need to make it long. Remember that when you speak one-to-one, usually the attention of people starts slowing down, going down after, I would say, 5-6 very intense minutes of conversation. And you need to fit your presentation about yourself into this time frame. You should be speaking about what's important about you. Again, provided we are speaking here about entry roles, you will not have developed much the career path by this interview. However, you will have an extensive academic experience, right? Because you already will have studied for several years, and you will have some moments of professional realizations. For example, I don't know, participating into some clubs or researches or competitions, etc. So what's relevant in this presentation is, of course, speaking about your education, what you have studied, especially how does that relate to the job in consideration, and your possible achievements. So if you, for example, won a competition or participated somewhere which is interesting and relevant to the job, please do mention that. This is very important. It's important to show how competitive you are, how inventive you are, how communicative you are, and how active you are.
Okay, great. Now, I think that's partly an answer to a question I saw in the chat, because we were talking about the question, tell us about yourself. And we have Junaida asking, tell me something which is not part of your CV. And I assumed you just really answered that question about extracurricular activities and so forth.
Yes. So maybe I can just add here a little bit. So when you hear this question, what is it that the interviewer really wants to know? It's all about the soft skills. So again, when you come to a job interview, of course, there will be a part of job interview where the interviewer will verify your hard skills, your academic credentials, etc. But the majority of the interview is really like a first date. So you will get to know the company, people who work in it, and the company will get to know you. So it's all about your personality. So when you hear this question, tell us something what's not in your CV, it means show us your personality, show us how you are a fit to our team, how you are a fit to our industry, to our activity, how are you fitting into our standards of communication, presentation to clients, and the general way of working.
Okay, great. Thank you for the extra information on that one. And we have another question for you. Let's say that you are preparing your job interview. You know that they will ask you questions about your past experience. Let's say you haven't got any. Let's say that this is really an application for your first job or your first job after an internship. So what should you say? How can you prepare that question about your past experience if you haven't got one yet?
Yes, so first and foremost, these days, many companies intentionally hire graduates, right? Especially large groups like ours included. Companies are looking for graduate candidates. So there's nothing wrong in not having experience, because we all have to start somewhere. However, as I just mentioned, it is very important to focus on your academic credentials and on your soft skills. So when a graduate candidate prepares for a job interview, as I mentioned, please do check about the company, check about their values, their mission, what they're doing, and try to find something in your personality and in your studies, in your academic credentials, something that matches that. For example, if you're applying in a consulting company like ours, it is very important to be able to present your communication skills, your capacity to invent, to speak with your clients, to develop a solution, to be initiative. And this is something which is very important to put into the light. Maybe you can speak about how you became a leader in your group, in your study group at university. Maybe something happened which you're proud of. I don't know, sport competitions, or you had a challenging task to deal with in challenging time frames, and how did you organize a group of people around that? How did you develop a solution? Again, speak about relevant events that are relevant to the job description. There's nothing wrong about not having experience, but you need to focus on soft skills, which your interlocutor will be looking for.
Okay, great. So that means that as a candidate, I can highlight, of course, my experience, if I have one, my study background, but also extracurricular activities and my soft skills. Okay,
that's right.
Okay, that's great. And just so you know, all the students in the audience, I am still keeping an eye on the chat. I'm not forgetting your questions. It's just that I see that a lot of them will be answered later on during the masterclass. So just a bit of patience. And the one who are not already in the content, so to speak, I will take them in the end. So no worries. If we move forward, if we look at the best way to prepare the interview, there are different ways to interview candidates these days. So what should I get ready for? What different kinds of interview can I expect, so to speak?
Yes, so indeed there are different kinds of interviews, types of interviews, and in our era of digitalization, it becomes more and more inventive and sophisticated. Of course, there is a classical interview where you speak one-to-one with your interlocutor. There is a video interview where you don't speak with anyone. You are actually speaking with a chatbot. Usually that comes as a first stage after you have applied and you have received interest from the company. Typically, you will have to connect and you will see some questions. And you will have a limited time to answer those questions, normally not longer than 1 minute for a question, or 1 minute and a half, where you need to very shortly and briefly present your vision, your answers to the given questions. There are some group interviews. Those are very interesting ones. Many consulting companies use this kind of interviews. They are more advanced stages within the interviewing process, and the aim of those group interviews is to see from the side of the company and to demonstrate from the side of candidates certain soft skills. For example, considering a case and developing quickly a solution. That can be a group exercise or individual exercise, but you will be presenting in a group and very frequently as a group. It can be cross interviewing by multiple people, where you will be receiving questions from one person, then another one, and then the third one. And that's how we usually check the resilience of people and the capacity of very quickly finding solutions. So those are group interviews. There are online interviews, I already mentioned them. Very, very frequently used form of interviews these days, where you just connect to a communicator, given communicator, and you will be speaking one-to-one, or in an in-chained interview where people change each other. And some more I can mention, maybe interview with a case study, but that is something which is usually that happens on advanced stages of a career, where people already have some experience. They're given a case study. The case study is given in advance, so you will have time for a preparation, and then you need to present your solution. Sometimes you will be you will be asked to prepare some slides with your solution. Sometimes you don't have to prepare slides, but you need to prepare for the presentation, for presenting verbally your solution.
So we can have a lot of different kinds of interviews, you could say. Do you have any, if you have just one piece of advice to give for each of them, let's say, what would be, in your eyes, the best way to prepare for a group interview, the best way to prepare for an online interview, and the best way to prepare a case study if you know that you have one upcoming? And do you have some general advice you can give us to the three cases on how to prepare for them?
I would say the general advice for all types of interview is the one that I mentioned in the beginning of our conversation, is really take your time to know as much as possible about the company, not only the company, but also the job, and then find elements that will be relevant for this job and for this company. Be professional, be focused, and usually from experience, including mine, when you take some time immediately before the interview, just before the interview, to again run in your head everything that you will have prepared, this will help as well. This will help focus. This will help appear more professional. Be professional, pay attention to how you addressed. This is important as well. Regarding the case study, the company usually will not be expecting from you the right answer. Sometimes there is no right answer. However, what you will be tested for is your ability to analyze a case, to consider it, to find important elements, and then find a solution, develop a solution. So there's no right or wrong answer, but there is a way to show your ability to reason, to think, to analyze, and to present. This is the very important side of case study consideration.
Okay, thank you very much for that. Very useful. And let's say I'm preparing a job interview. I have done my research on the company, on the job description. I know it all. How could I prepare some question that I know will probably be coming, some classical questions? Typically, what are your strengths and weaknesses? It's very difficult to avoid that one. So how do I prepare it best? And also the question, why me? Why should I get this job?
Yes, indeed, this kind of questions are very frequently met during interviews. And it essentially goes down again to check in how are you a fit to the company and to the job. So I'm coming back to my advice, do read the job description. Regarding your strength, you will have many, you will have a lot, because we don't have just one or two strengths. We have a lot of positive sides. You don't have to present all of them. And if you are presenting a strength which is not relevant to the job, it will be nice, but it won't be enough to impress an interviewer. That's why I'm telling, please do make sure that you read the job description, that you know it, and that you know yourself. Present your strength, think of your strengths, which are relevant and which can be an added value to this job. For example, if you're a consultant, your strength could be presentation skills, or stakeholder management skills, or stress resilience, capacity to work hard, capacity to find unusual solutions. Those will be very relevant strengths to this job. A strength like being able to win a running competition. I'm exaggerating, of course, but just to give an example, it will be nice. It's definitely a strength, but it won't help you to become successful in this particular job. Regarding weaknesses, it's a little bit trickier question, of course, and you don't have to confess here about all possible weaknesses. However, you should be thinking in this light. We all have weaknesses. So if you answer something like, I can't think of any, it will be a wrong way to answer, right? Because it means you haven't thought properly about that and you don't know yourself. Showing that you know yourself and that you are someone who is continuously learning and developing means you can show that by presenting one or two maximum, not more, weak sides of yours. You need to tell about them. You need to tell what you have done to overcome or to realize them. And what are you doing right now to develop? For example, you can be too pushy, right? But what does it mean to be pushy? And how have you discovered that? And what are you doing right now to overcome that? And how can you apply that to this particular job?
Thank you very much. And one question from the chat this time, a question that might come up indeed in a job interview, and which is good to prepare beforehand, is, thank you Faisal for the question, how do you best answer the question, why are you leaving your current job?
Yes. We do ask this question always, I would say always, or almost always. There are two important things to know about that. Of course, you need to answer this question, and you don't have to lie. So there are always some reasons for leaving a job. You're unhappy with something, you're unhappy with the project, you're unhappy with the team. That often happens, or whatever. You should try to be as honest as possible, but of course without disclosing something which could compromise yourself. So for example, if by any chance you had a conflict at work and that is the reason why are you leaving, think about how could you present that in a lighter way, in the way where you will still talk about your strength or something which can sell you better to the company. Well, of course, it's better to avoid conflicts at work, but sometimes that happens, right? That is the first point. Second point is companies, interviewers do not like when people change jobs very frequently. So if that does happen to you, be ready to answer that question as well. If you change jobs every half a year or every year, I would say in your career, try to stay at least 2 years in each company. That is a decent time to have developed experience and to bring to the company a complete value, a completed project. But if you change jobs more frequently, find the reason why. Try this reason to be a true one, and think about what you were looking for. Maybe you left because you found a project which is much more interesting than the current one, or maybe you had to move, or maybe the new company is closer to your career aspiration than the previous one. And always speak, of course, in very respectful way about your past employers. This is also very important.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much for the advice and answer on that one. So if we move on, the preparation phase is done. We know all of the company, we know all of the position, we have imagined answers to every question we might get, we have prepared them, and we are also prepared for different kinds of interviews if we have an idea of what to expect. So now we are really getting ready for the interview. Do you have any advice as to what you should wear, how you should look? And it seems like a simple question, but it kind of gets existential when it's a job interview, so really important. So is there any advice you can give us on that one?
Yes, of course. So in short form, the answer would look like that. Be dressed as a match, right? If we develop this answer, it will be, again, make sure that you know the company, you know what they do and their culture. So a traditional way to dress is, of course, something classical, something like a suit or a shirt and a trousers or a skirt. But sometimes it would be too much. For example, if you are getting interviewed for a small startup, right? Usually they don't wear suits. They wear something else. So you should be looking professional and matching the company culture at the same time. Of course, wearing clean clothes is very important. Maybe for people with longer hair, it would be a nice idea of thinking of how to present this hair so that it looks clean and proper line properly. For people who use makeup, not to use a lot of makeup, just the minimal amount of makeup. Regarding jewelries, I would say also try to minimize that unless you interview for a job somewhere at a fashion company, because all this will be too much. I remember interviewing a candidate who was wearing very large earrings and and bracelets, and she was moving her hands all the time, and it was making so much noise that I was barely able to focus on the interview. So all this will be distracting the interviewer's attention from from the matter of interview. So be professional, look professional, and relevant to the company culture.
Okay, thank you very much. It helps a lot. So now let's say we are prepared, we are dressed, we have a little bit of makeup, but not too much. And we are now on the way to the interview. We are standing before the door of the building where the interview takes place, all prepared, all ready, all set. But what happens? Stress might kick in. It happens. Do you have any advice on how to manage that stress? Is there any exercise you could do just to be sure to calm down, not to get too nervous, and to be really concentrated and focused on the interview?
Yes, absolutely. So I think having a short walk might help a lot, and I know many people who do that. It really helps, and my advice would be, while you are taking this short walk, again, think about everything you want to tell during the interview. It will help, again, restructure your answers and your presentation in your head, and kind of get connected with the company before the interview started. This will feel in the interview, and this will help you, I would say, align with the company, right? When you arrive, please make sure that you arrive on time, preferably a little bit sooner. I would say 5 to 10 minutes sooner, because sometimes the offices are large. You will have to find the right floor, the right building, the right floor, the right office. And then maybe you will have to be announced to the interviewers. So arriving a little bit earlier, but not too early, is a good advice. Shake the hand of your interviewer, show your respect. What else? Maybe during the interviewing, try not to be stressed too much. Sit straight, but not stressed, because sometimes people are so stressed that they sit so straight, it really shows their stress. Keep in mind that, again, the interviewing process it's not only the company who is considering you, it's also you considering the company. So try to develop this conversation where you speak as equals, because that's exactly what you are to the company. They're considering you as your new team member. They will try to speak with you friendly and to relax you. So just try to catch this wave, this mood, and develop this conversation. Always show respect. Remember to show respect. Again, knowing the company, you will know their culture, the local culture, the country from where the company originates from also matters, because they will likely have their own local traditions. When you sit, try not to maybe point your feet at your interlocutor, just to show respect. So just remember very simple and basic rules of politeness, of respect, including being on time.
Very concrete advice. Thank you very much for that one. And we have done all this. We have done the interview. It's kind of drawing to an end. And now we come to a question that I have seen a lot in the chat. What happens very often at the end of an interview is that the recruiter asks the candidate, do you have any questions? And the question is here, should the candidate have questions to begin with? What type of questions should he have or she have? And finally, is there any question that you think should be avoided by the candidate? Do not ask that one.
Yes. So from my experience, I would say there are two types of questions to be avoided. One is the type of questions which are too typical and too obvious, something which is very often mentioned on the websites who give recommendation of preparation to the job interview, something very obvious, which will show that you have read that somewhere, but not really mean. Recruiters usually see that, and it leaves rather a negative impact. I mean, what you need to show is your interest in the company, not only the interest in the company, but your knowledge of the, not only of the job description, but also of yourself, right? So a proper question would be something which shows your understanding of the position, your understanding of your added value, and your curiosity about something more in depth, something maybe about the projects, maybe about the team. So questions about a team would be very proper questions. Questions about even KPIs. Okay, KPIs is something which is very common question, but if you really are interested into that, the recruiter will see that. So something which will help you get more information and get more understanding about this job. Those are very proper questions. And the second one, the second type of question which should be avoided is how have I done, right? This is something that sometimes candidates ask. I would not recommend ask this kind of question because usually the interviewer will not answer you to this question or will answer something like you have done well, right? Just remember that of course you're in competition very often and you will be compared to other candidates, but try not to show your anxiety if you have any. Try to be professional and self-confident. This is very important.
I see. We actually have a question in the chat about that from Anna. Can I ask at the end of the interview, what is my chance to get the position? So better not do that then.
Better not to ask this
Okay.
question because you won't have any answer to this.
Okay.
This question. Yes.
Very good to know. One question that might be a bit touchy for candidates is the salary. What would be your advice on that one? Because it is at the same time a crucial question. It's important. So is that something you can ask at the end of the interview or during? What do you think?
Yes. So many candidates, many people are scared to talk about salary. I would say do not be scared. Salary question is very important, not only for you, but also for the company. In the modern practice, the salary question is very often discussed at the very beginning of communication. So usually when a recruiter, a company contacts a candidate, the salary question will be raised during the first stages of communication. Why is that? Because this way we save both sides time, right? If there is any significant mismatch, I would say, between the candidate's salary expectation and the company's offer, it doesn't make any sense to continue the conversation. So all the rest will be just the waste of time, because if the gap is significant, it's very rare that something can be done. However, if the recruiter at the early stages of your communication has not raised this question, I would suggest you ask this question to the recruiter in the very same reason. When you are being asked this question, you just need to know your value and the market average, right? If you know the salary offerings of this particular company, it would be the best. There is a possibility to know that. For example, you can check on Glassdoor, where you will have a lot of information about many companies. There is a salary simulation on LinkedIn, etc., etc. Today there are many tools. So knowing the adequate salary level expectations will help. Don't be intimidated of this question and just be prepared.
Okay, good to know. We have another question about that from Elvina. Apparently, some companies ask for an expected salary range, even for internship positions, and she is wondering, how are we as candidates supposed to answer that? Do you have any advice on that one for internships, especially as to expected salary range?
Yes, well, the advice is exactly the same as I already just given, and this is absolutely normal to hear this kind of question, even for an intern, because there's no difference. We pay to interns as well. There is a salary, and of course, we ask for the expectations.
Okay, great, perfect. Thank you for that. And we are now coming to the end of the interview. We have done it all. We are now wondering, what can we do? Well, as a candidate, just to be sure to stand out. How do we handle that? Should we send a message after the interview? In that case, what would be the ideal timeline to send a message the same day? Or is that too pushy, for example? But is it an idea to send an email to get some feedback and just to be sure that you are not forgotten by the recruiter, so to speak?
In general, sending a thank you note after the interview is a good thing to do. You can do it, I would say, the next day or in the beginning of the same day, unless your interview happened by the end of the day. It should be short, it should be sincere and succinct. It should not be another one page or half a page message. It should be really short, and the main message is expressing your willingness to continue the conversation with the company. Maybe if you can express your vision of how you are a fit and your better understanding that you have gained during the interview of how you're a fit to company, that would be the right message to put into this thank you note. However, if this has been profoundly discussed during the interview, I would say it would be too much, because you have already discussed that, you have shaken the hands, and it's really just a matter of waiting for the answer from the company. It's better not to repeat. It's really the question of your feeling of whether it is still required or not. So try to make it succinct, short, and informative, bringing more information to the recruiter.
Okay, good to know. And let's say that I would need to send a message after the interview, but to say that I refuse the offer because, well, finally I'm not interested. What would be your advice on that one? What would be the best approach to let down an offer, so to speak?
Yes, so of course that happens. As I mentioned, the interviewing process is not only the company considering the candidate, but also the candidate considering the company. So you will be rejecting offers on a regular basis. As soon as you know that you don't want to continue with this particular company, make sure that you send this message to this company. Of course, in a respectful form. It's better to call, but sending a message is also very fine. Don't forget to do that, because especially if the company is already at the final stages of your interviewing and is preparing to make you an offer, or maybe has already issued an offer, as soon as you know that it's a no from your side, let the company know. They will be grateful, because they need to find a candidate and they will know that they need to carry on.
Mm. So they will save time moving on with the other candidates. And
Yes.
before moving on to our conclusion in a few minutes, I just wanted to make sure that we've got everybody covered in the chat. We have one question from Faisal. If you have any advice as to a specific question as to the future, what would be, well, a good reply, a good answer to the question, where do you see yourself in 5 years? Also a classic.
Yes, so it's a question that lies on the surface. There's no hidden secret in this question. So when the company is asking this question, we really want to know your development plans. Sometimes it means, how do your development plans match our possibility to provide you with this development, right? Sometimes we will want to see what's your vision and your ambitions in learning something new, developing some new skills. Sometimes it will mean how ambitious you are and in what X of your career you will want to develop. Especially, it is important for people who can at some point turn either to becoming more technical, develop their technical skills, or becoming a manager, manage a project, etc. This is also very important to give the company the understanding of where to push you, where to develop you.
Mm-mm. Okay. We have another question about a classical interview question, and that is, how would you answer in the best possible way the question, what do you have to offer the project or the organization? And I assume this is linked to all you just said about the preparation, that you know all about the company, you know all about the job description, which means that you also know how you could be the perfect candidate for the position in question.
How you're a perfect fit. So I'm not sure I understood correctly the question. The person who asked this question, if I misunderstood, please correct your question. But if I understand that right, as a product, the person means
offer the project. Sorry, right? Yeah, my pronunciation. Yeah. What can I offer the project or the organization, the company?
Okay, what you can offer to the organization?
Yes.
Very simple. So we have already discussed this today earlier. Again, know the company and know what they do, and then read several times the job description and understand the job description. If you are talking with a recruiter before, be it headhunter or the in-house recruiter, don't be shy to ask preliminary questions. Maybe you need to understand something better in the job description, and then relate that to what do you have in your educational background and maybe in your first professional background. You will have some elements which will be an answer to the company's needs. So this is exactly what you have to offer, and this is exactly why you're a match to the company. So again, if it is a company that, I don't know, produces cell phones and you are being interviewed, I don't know, to the sales department, for example, it means maybe you will know some sales techniques. Maybe you are an amazing communicator. Maybe you know how to find information on the market. Maybe you know cell phones. Maybe you know something about the market trends, etc., etc. So just try to find all that in your background, both educational and professional, if you have developed any already, and present that as a pitch message in the beginning of your conversation with the recruiter.
Okay, great. Very, very good advice. Thank you. And a question, what would be your advice if you get a question during an interview and you have no idea how to answer it? What would be your advice to handle the situation?
Yes. It can be a very difficult moment during the interview, and many people just lose the thread of the conversation and their composure. So my advice would be, don't lose your composure. This is the very important thing. Don't be afraid to take pauses. So if you don't know how to answer the question, you can take, please give me a few moments to focus, and you will definitely have some thoughts. You just need to focus. Think about the question, about your answer to this question. You can start thinking aloud. Well, make sure you don't speak too much, of course, but if you are ready to start thinking the way of presenting some elements of your solution, this is the right way to do. But don't be afraid to take pauses. Don't be afraid to ask for those pauses, because that depends on the difficulty of the question. Maybe the question was designed the way to confuse you, and the interviewer will be watching you dealing with this moment.
Interesting. Thank you very much for that. We've also got Ornella asking if you have any relevant resources, either books or websites or blogs that they can use to be prepared for the interviews. For example, books or sites or blogs where you can get information on how to prepare best for the for the most frequently asked questions, the things that shouldn't be done or said, a bit like what we are doing today in the masterclass. Do you have any tips on literature or web pages that you think are useful?
Well, there is a lot of literature and websites in internet. The easiest is go on Amazon and type something like how to prepare for an interview. You will have plenty of books, or Google the same question. Of course, visiting job teasers webinars is one of the best ways as well, I believe. Ask if you know recruiters. If you personally know recruiters, you can ask them for some tips and advice. But I don't think the market is lacking today this information. It's really in open sources. You can easily reach it. It's just the matter of doing the proper research on internet.
Okay. Thank you very, very much for that too. I'm trying to see in the chat, we might not have time to cover all the questions we have in there. I've tried to kind of give priority to the ones that have been liked a lot. So if I can ask the students in the audience, if you have questions on the list that you really would like to be answered and that I would have missed, please don't hesitate to like them, to get them to show higher up in the list, so to speak, and I'll try to catch them before the end. Do you have, Ina, any last tips or advice, general, that you would like to share with the students that are with us today?
Yes, so my main advice as a last advice is, again, remember that when you are going to an interview, it's a two sides process, right? So make sure you have developed enough of curiosity and desire to be there. This is something that the interviewer will be looking for. Second large point is the interviewer will be looking mostly for the team match, the company match. So demonstrating your soft skills, providing with some examples, and demonstrating how you are a match with your soft skills is one of the biggest keys to master this interview, to succeed.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you very much for that. I think we've got the questions in the chat covered, but we haven't finished quite yet, because the good news is that at Reply, you are actually looking for graduates right now. So do you have maybe a moment to tell us about the possibilities you have right now at Reply?
Yes, absolutely. So maybe the best way is I've prepared a couple of slides, and if I can share them to show, to speak a little bit about ourselves. Yes, I hope it is visible.
Yes, absolutely.
So because the audience here comes from many countries, maybe it makes sense to show where we are today. We're speaking mostly about Europe, right? So these are the European countries where we're present. Right, maybe it will be interesting for you to apply to France and Benelux, which I present, but if you are aiming at other countries, please feel free to reach out and to apply to my colleagues. These are the services that we provide. This is also important to understand, because of course I realize people who are listening to us today, they study very different subjects. So we mostly provide consulting services in IT industry and in finance. A little bit of what we're proud of. These are not all, but just main awards that Reply Group received recently. And these are the examples of our graduate and junior roles that we're looking for. So there are some roles in finance and IT. But what I would recommend is, of course, to go to the company website, this one, and check about what we do. We have plenty of, so our group consists of a number of companies, each of them specializing on something. And the best way to know about that is just checking on our website and checking what companies are present in what countries and what they do, what are their services, and what kind of profiles we are looking for. This is the address to our careers website. You will see many countries. So please make sure you click on the country you want to be working in. And these are the two email addresses for France and Benelux region.
Wonderful. Thanks a lot for that information. So don't hesitate to consult this if you are actively looking right now for an opportunity. And I think that we are actually now approaching the end of the masterclass today. In case you have something to add, Ina, to everything that has just been said, please don't hesitate to do so, if that is the case. Or do you think that we have more or less covered all the different aspects of the preparation of the job interview?
I think that we have approached from many different angles the preparation for the interview. I hope it was informative to people who were listening, watching, and listening to us. In case there are still some questions, I will try to answer them. Maybe they can reach out. And of course, to those of you who would be interested to apply, please do not hesitate to do so.
Well, thanks a lot, Ina, for all the advice, and I'm sure it will help all the students attending to prepare and master the job interview. And I just wanted to say two small things to all of you before the end. We have created a small survey, a poll for you. So you'll find it in the poll tab in the meeting. If you have just a minute to give us your opinion, because our goal is really that this is something that is supposed to be useful to you. So we'd really love to hear what you think about it. So please don't hesitate to fill it in. That's the first thing. And I also wanted to let you know, secondly, that you can find a lot of content like this, meeting the experts, on our YouTube channel. And like I said earlier, you will all receive the replay of this session automatically. You can also find it on that YouTube channel, and you will find more career-related content, of course, on your Career Center site and on the Job Teaser website. We are also present, of course, on social networks, so don't hesitate to look for us, for example, on Instagram or on TikTok. We are there. And our hope is really that this is something that can help you. All the advice that you have had from Ina today, I think it's the case. It was very rich. And so thanks again, Ina, for all the information, all the advice, all the ideas, all the answers to the questions. And all I'd like to say at the end is good luck to you all as to your job search now or in the future. And we hope to see you really soon for the next masterclass on Job Teaser. So thank you, everyone, and thank you, Ina.
Thank you, Åsa.
Have a good day, everyone.